Ja, sagen wir jetzt Hans. Sicher Leute. Ja, oh, nein. Wirklich nicht
Musa ist rot. Der Fokus. Ich glaube, das ist wo soll das?
So, this is for the
Do we have an empty chair there? Ich habe jetzt ein Folie gesucht. Ja. Ja, schon.
1, 2,
aber wir hören
3.
Elise.
Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the closing of a day we started with a circle of trust, so I'm very honored and grateful to Nicole and Michaela in particular, who have been co-creating this space. Thank you so much. I'm going to start with a poem, if that's okay. There was a poet here named Paolo Gambi. He was here yesterday and today. Did anybody talk to Paolo? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to read you the poem he wrote as a start for us to get into the mood of this journey that we're going to take together. It's called A Journey in the Universe. This is your verse, wild and soft, a lynx and an oak. Also your daughter spoke, a tear but no fear, together as one, peacefully as a family. From the top, you see everything. Language of the root, cycle of a tree, much comfort to feel. So before we start, I want to ask you here, this is about engaging in the Swiss future. And I'd like to ask you here in the audience to stand up if you have a Swiss, if you are a Swiss citizen, Swiss citizenship. Or if you feel Swiss, if your heart is in Switzerland. Oh, more people. Great. Are there people with several nationalities from any countries around the world? Please stand up. Quite a lot of global citizens. Wonderful, amazing. And who is from Davos? From here, actually. Great. Very good. And who's from planet Earth? Everyone. Great. So I'm Swiss. My name is Elise. I was actually born in France. My husband is Canadian. So we have also 3 nationalities in our family. But I must say, I don't know exactly why, but today I was really proud of being Swiss. I even kept my Swiss house badge. And I think because with all the turmoil going around the world, this feels like an island of peace. And so I'm really proud of being here today with all of you. And let's see now how Switzerland can innovate, also what we can learn from the rest of the world, how we can also maybe open up our heart a bit more, but also what we can bring to the world as Swiss pioneers, Swiss innovators. We have a very distinguished panel here. You might know some of them. I think you have your names somewhere on the slide later, so you can connect with them. And I will introduce them to you in a minute. Just a quick word about who I am. Michaela asked me to say a few words about who I am. So I have several hats as well. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a teacher. I'm a climate diplomat. So I'm the founder of Climate Bridges and also co-founder of She Changes Climate. We have a Swiss chapter as well called She Builds Bridges. So we are a woman-led organization focused on climate action. I also teach sustainability and entrepreneurship, and I'm international gender champion, co-chairing the Climate Impact Group in Geneva. So that's more in the diplomacy side. But really, I'm here because I'm passionate about partnership building. And this is what we will discuss here tonight. This is also what the Climate Hub is about. It's about what we call radical collaboration, or deep collaboration, if you prefer. So that's about going beyond our egos and logos and connecting to our shared humanity with the same vision, which is a sustainable future for all. And I'm really passionate about working as a catalyst to unlock the power of collective action. And I'm sure this is also something that all the panelists here share. So let's see tonight if we can do that in an hour and a half, a bit less, to see how we can nurture this ecosystem also with all of you. We will have time after the initial dialogue with an open chair. So some of you will be able to come on stage to speak with the panelists, to share your questions, your insights. So be ready for that. We want you to be very much part of it. It's a very inclusive space. I think this is one of the most inclusive spaces in Davos so far. So that's for the framing of the discussion. So now let me turn to my pioneers, our co-creators. Just a very quick question first. If you could share your name, your organization or your initiative, and just one word about how you feel right now. So maybe we'll start here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here. Actually, my name is Hans-Martin Heierling, and I'm a native from Davos. And we have a company, actually, I'm one of these pioneer families of Davos, which, were the founder of ski boots. That's why I had 2 ski boots here. I will explain more later. And I just want to say short few words about it. If you think about it, 140 years ago, when these pioneers were here in Davos, they were starving on hunger. There were just few hotels here in Davos. The rest was really in pain. And look now what's happened. So this is just to rethink a little bit our system, a systemic, thought in the round, before we go further on different topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, my name is Noemi. I work for a company called Zühlke. We are an innovation and transformation provider for companies. So we do help other companies to be innovative. You can think of coffee machines or platforms, applications, everything from hardware to software and in between. You ask for, I'm not from Davos, but actually got married in Davos. How I feel about tonight. I'm actually very pleased to share the space with all of you here and in the audience as well. There's a lot of input at the WEF typically, and it's very fast paced, and I feel it's a nice and quiet space here to get a bit more in depth. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alessandro Medici. I'm Swiss, originally from Firenze 500 years ago, but now living in Switzerland. I work for Power-Blox, and I'm the founder of Power-Blox. We do rural electrification in the global south. All over the world, but especially for the global south. And we support especially small entrepreneurs, female-run entrepreneurs especially, and small health centers with solar electricity. over to you.
Yes. Hello, everybody. You are the courageous one. You haven't left and gone for a nice dinner. I have the headphone. Can't you hear me? No, it's not really. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, I was applauding you for being here and not going out for dinner and leaving us alone here, so thank you. So my name is Elisabeth Stern. I am a member on the board of the Klimaseniorinnen, the Swiss Senior Women for Climate Protection, something very different, because we took the state to court for not doing enough in terms of a good climate policy, and we won the case. I will say more about that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sasha Cisar. I work at Radicant Bank. Radicant is Switzerland's first digital sustainability bank, and there I lead sustainability research and active ownership, meaning that I speak with companies to become more sustainable. And I'm actually feeling enthusiastic and optimistic because I only attended this week in Davos sustainability-related events. So, yeah, now more than ever.
Thank you so much, and I feel inspired. So one more question to warm up the space more. So if you had to choose between the butterfly and the turtle, what would you choose? So the butterfly, as you know, is beautiful. It's a symbol of transformation, has many colors, but it doesn't live very long. But it comes out of the caterpillar as well, which is interesting. And the turtle is very determined and can go a very, very long way. So maybe we start with you. Going back?
It's difficult to choose. I was thinking about it a long time. Actually, a butterfly in a way because we need transformation, and a turtle because we need to be persistent.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. I want the butterfly actually the butterfly has learned how to do transformation. So sure enough, the butterfly can transform into a turtle. And then that would be perfect for me.
So you want the best
because
of both worlds.
Because we had to be so persistent, 80 years. We had to wait and go from one court to the next until finally they understood our case. And
we already discussed and we said we have to be the turtle because it takes so long and we have to survive it at the end. So if you have to live probably 100 years, that you really can come to a conclusion, to an end where you can innovate something and bring the ideas to the ground and somebody realizes that you're changing the world and supports you. So for me, more the turtle.
Thank you. And you can also choose another animal.
I mean, there is the aspect of both the turtle and the butterfly, and I was thinking about it as well. And I think we need the monkey as an example. We need monkey qualities in terms of being agile, adapt, adjust, do something else, walk, sometimes climb the mountains. We need instruments to help us, but I think the agility is something that helps us to adjust, get better, improve, and then transform.
For me, it's really the butterfly, because it's transformation from a caterpillar into a butterfly. That means you get all the knowledge from the ground in the transformation process, and you see it from above. So you have much bigger perspective when you zoom out and looking down to this what's happened.
Thank you for sharing. And I think for me would be the dolphin. And as my social attitude. But I must say also I travel, I navigate well in clear water, not so well when it's less clear. So what about you here in the audience? How many butterflies? You want to raise your hand? Okay, quite a few. How many turtles? How many monkeys? And how many dolphins? Great. So it's good to explore that because it's good also to connect with nature because sometimes as human beings we see ourselves as separate, but we're all part of the same living system. And so let's also think about ourselves as part of this complex system where we are also respecting each other between the different species and valuing the diversity. So now let's go into the more serious topic of Swiss innovation. Is there one thing about Switzerland that really inspires you, that you admire, that when you wake up in the morning, you feel proud of it, and this is something that maybe also inspired your business? I don't know who wants to start. You want to start?
I think in Switzerland we have an amazing platform to starting new businesses. You know, if you think about all these small communities, which still exist in Switzerland, it's a good, learning platform to implement also in small entities, in small business. And this is, I think this is wonderful in Switzerland. I mean, we have so many opportunities to do it. And, you know, maybe the Swiss guys or Swiss people are a little bit shy when it comes to a bigger scope. Then they think about, maybe Americans should do it, you know. But I think it's a lot of invention here because we have so many KMUs. It's small entities, middle entities size. And this is something because it's a challenge on one side, but it's a fair challenge, and it's people start to respect each other. And I think this is something which is really interesting in Switzerland, which it drives us forward for new innovations.
So would you consider Davos as a Swiss lab of innovation and sustainability, including the city of Davos, not just the WEF, but the city, because that's also part of your history?
Yes, and especially this place here with these initiatives. I think it's a big kickoff, which it goes to a new direction, and I'm really proud for Davos to follow with all these initiatives, and just can say congratulations for that we have this opportunity. I mean, we have also some initiatives which we started 7 years ago, for example, and it was coming out at the Spengler Cup with few participants. We have 11 companies on the beginning, and now we have 220 companies which are sharing our network. And the idea is really just to, not talking, doing. So this is the drilling point which brings us forward now.
And we'll talk about the cross-fertilization and the bridge building a little bit later as well. Anybody else who wants to share inspiration? Yes?
For me, really inspiring was Bertrand Piccard with the solar input. Because when I thought, probably some of you carried a battery around sometimes, and this heavy thing to fly, that was for me almost impossible. But Bertrand managed to do it. And that's really, I think, you never should put some barriers in what you're thinking. You can always overcome it, even if if you think it's absolutely not possible. And that was very inspiring for me. And that always followed me during our own activities.
And your passion about solar energy, you told me before, it comes from your childhood as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, it comes from my childhood because, I grew up on the River Rhine, and I was fishing all the time. Now, 100 years ago at this river, at the place where I was, they were still washing by hand. The women came and washed their clothes by hand on this river. And 100 years later, I'm fishing and we have electricity. Nobody goes washing there. And that was very inspiring for me to see how we could change. And it also, when we were making plans and looked how we can bring electrification, our own electrification in Switzerland was very inspiring to me. And I always look back, how did we do that? And how did you overcome that? Because we were very poor that days. A lot of people in Switzerland left Switzerland because we were so poor. Now look at us now. Now we all come to Davos.
Thank you. Such a big jump indeed. And also I'm glad we have washing machine now. And the men also do the laundry and the dishes. Elisabeth, anything you want to share?
What do I want to share? Switzerland eventually made it possible for us to win our case, because it's a highly democratic country. We have this Basisdemokratie, and that was all part of the whole game, that we actually, we were not heard within Switzerland, of course not. Sorry for that, but we did have to go outside, and then we were heard, but we were not put in prison or anything like that for actually taking our own government to court. I mean, that's something you can't do that anywhere.
Thank you. And you said something really important, that you had this sense of safety, that you could make your voice heard. And because it's a democracy, you felt safe. And we know now around the world we have 71% of people who live in autocracies. So it's a privilege we have to be able to speak up.
And what we heard by Mohamed Yunus just before about Bangladesh, I mean, you just shoot these young demonstrators for nothing. Anyway, we didn't have to go through any of that. And it was still a long journey. I mean, 8 years. I mean, if we learned one thing, it was patience. Turtle, yes. Yes, we are good at that. But we are good at that as women anyway, because we waited so long for the women's vote. I mean,
Indeed, a lot of patience. Anything else?
Maybe one aspect to add is the value of education. I mean, when we think about what is known about Switzerland outside of Switzerland, a lot of it is also the universities that we have and the investment we take into research and trying to figure out and solve problems. Think about CERN in Geneva or any other topics like the training and we invest. Which is obviously only possible because we are a certain level of wealth, and we have a country that we have standards of living are high enough, which also brings back to this point of now it's attractive for people to come back or even more people to join us, and this diversity and to make it possible to be this Schmelztiegel or this melting pot that we have here. I think that's a tremendous added value that we're not fully utilizing. Or not value to the full potential. So I think really this education and the investment we do also to, we are always number one in number of patents that we have. So I think we're really good at that. We can improve in translating it into scalability and making it really happen. But this first step, we're really good.
I think also the connections. What I feel when we started 10 years ago, it was really helpful that we could connect to so many different specialists. We have an institute in the Canton Aargau that's called High-Tech Zentrum. Then they invited us, and we didn't have to pay. And they invited a lot of specialists, and we made workshops with them. And that's how we, for example, found the case for our product, just by all this support. And we found, even after that, all the connections to the universities, to the specialists, to the small companies, the KMUs was so helpful. And I think that makes this innovation possible.
Thank you so much. So before I turn to you, I will just spice it up a little bit. You noticed before we came here that Swiss people also like to be very precise. And number one, for producing watch, these very expensive watches, and everything has to be perfect and square and well done. And so we tend to be very precise in terms of what we do here at home in Switzerland. But what about what we do abroad? Maybe you heard about the Finance Initiative, which is asking the federal government to issue a regulation on the finance sector to make sure the insurance companies and the banks align their portfolio with the Paris Agreement. Because there was a study showing that the emissions of the finance sector in Switzerland is responsible for 18 times more emissions than the whole country. So yes, we can be precise, but are we also ready to look at our mistakes or things we need to improve?
Well, definitely. And if you mentioned that initiative, I'm in the committee of that initiative, and now I have to kind of put away my professional hat and put my civil society or personal hat on. Yes, most definitely. But for me, the crucial question as a private person is in a way, to ask ourselves, what do we expect of our financial institutions, right? And in relation to the climate agreement, in relation also to the biodiversity targets, would we like them to contribute positively to that? And I think for me personally, that's a no-brainer. But I think ultimately the question is in a way not, to assign blame to someone, right, or an institution or a specific stakeholder, because we all have a shared responsibility to achieve those targets, right? And I think everyone has to put his or her work into it. And I think it's very laudable what you have done with the climate seniors. I think that's something to aspire to kind of, an initiative like that. And I think that other initiative gives the possibility to have a kind of a broader conversation in the public in Switzerland on financial institutions, on environmental targets, and what we would like to achieve together in a way.
Thank you. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's open up the discussion on that. And there will be more multi-stakeholder dialogues on this finance initiative. So stay connected with us. Just on this, yes, you want to add?
Yeah, I would very much like to do that because I have been around on this planet longer than you have. And we heard this, I must tell you, already 40 years ago. We have to give the financial sector its time and they will come around and and we have not moved. I'm really frustrated about that, sorry to say. But the leverage that our own financial sector would have is just tremendous. If they would get it, that they only invest in renewable energy, they move out of fossil energy completely, totally. And they still tell us today, well, step by step. I mean, I heard this 40 years ago. Yeah, so where is that step by step? I finally want them to do it. Anyway, I needed to add that.
I like even to add something to that. Because I got the same frustration as you, probably even more when we are talking about Africa, for example, and financing projects in Africa. Yes. When I go to an investors round somewhere in Zurich, and they ask me what I'm doing, and I'm telling them I'm doing projects in Africa, then they say, oh, red flag. We don't do anything. Now, I just came back from Austria talking to an investor there, and he told me he'd rather invest in a project in Africa than in the US. So probably there is some hope, but I'm really found it frustrating in Switzerland. We got so much support on the technology, on technology investment, and so on, but as soon as we go then in the global south, it's a no-go. And that's very sad, because what we saw, the potential of these new markets is huge. It's unbelievable. The loyalty of your clients, the potential of growth that you can have. When we bring solar power to a small business somewhere in Ethiopia, they can increase their income 22 times, not 20%. 22 times, from $9 a month to around $206 a month in average. We proved that with Caritas together, and then you don't find investments. Isn't it sad? So.
Thank you. So we need a butterfly effect in the finance sector, and we probably need to learn from other countries. I guess in terms of financial regulation, other EU countries are moving ahead faster. And Singapore, I heard as well, Canada, UK. And we need to learn from the global south as well. So any other examples of what we can learn from other countries outside Switzerland?
But maybe one word before, because I think what you mentioned earlier is important. That was, for me, in a way, the motivation to go to Radicant. Now I put my professional hat back on, basically. To actually contribute to something that is focused on positive impact. And you can actually do that. There's good examples out there, and there is capital around, especially in Switzerland. Now the question is we have to shift the capital towards the solutions that contribute towards achieving the environmental and social targets that we would like to achieve, right? And we can do that, but we actually have to shift the money. And there's good examples, there's good financial institutions out there that are trying to do that in public, but also in private markets in the north, but also in the global south. But it needs to really step up and be much quicker, because we're losing time, of course.
I just want to jump in here also from the business perspective, because I think what you just showcased is there is, well, good reasons for investing and doing these investments. And we don't need always to wait for, big frameworks and regulations and all these type of things, but we can just do it. And if you see the positive effects or the impacts by it, you will be able to transform it and translate it. So, I mean, this is a great example of how renewable energy is actually accessing and leveraging a bigger potential and economical potential of these communities, of these companies in just further away from us. And I think this is also something we have to learn. Where is the effect happening, and how can we benefit also or be part of this, even if it's further away from ourselves? And this is something that it's hard for us as human beings, because we like the control and we like the things that we understand, and we don't like typically if it's uncertain, a language we don't understand. And these, how can we, if we are able to translate that or build the bridge, as you mentioned before, I think that it's a no-brainer. And this is even in the Global South, but there are examples here as well where companies are just, if you improve an item and you use less material or you use less electricity in the way you design it, in the way you use a product, it's a win-win. And there is so many of these win-win examples that we just can start basically now. So it's not always a sacrifice, and it's not always a connotation of sustainability is being painful and we have to de-invest. There is actually enough potential where it's still on the win-win side also from a business perspective.
Thank you for sharing your passion. And I'm sure there are more ideas in the audience, and there will be, as I say, there will be space for the chair is there. So be ready for it. I have one more question for any of you. If you could spend one day with a global leader of your choice, who would that be, and what would you do with that person? You have someone in mind, or
I've actually someone in mind. Someone who was also I saw this week. I mean, there's many different examples. Could be anyone from the climate youth, could be from someone from the climate seniors. But for instance, Sandrine Declève, for instance, I think she's a fantastic leader, a fantastic woman, person, a person, who's also, I think, a role model for my daughter. I would say, and I think everything that she says is very thoughtful. Should be printed and spread around. It's fantastic. And if you don't know her, she was co-president now for a while from the Club of Rome, among many different things that she was doing. And I think she's an amazing person.
You spoke about Yunus.
Yeah, I guess, because he was just here today, I guess I would pick Yunus. Otherwise, I might have picked, I forgot her first name, Sheinbaum, the new president of Mexico, who is really a climate scientist also and highly committed. But yes, I would choose Yunus. I mean, just imagine, this man is 84 years old. Now, I might say something not very nice, but if I compared him today with some presentations I saw by Joe Biden, and they have about the same age. And Yunus today, Muhammad Yunus, was so clear. And this power he still has, and all the changes he needs to do now in Bangladesh, and the focus he also puts on all the climate question. Yes, I would choose him now as my favorite as right now. And what would I do if I had his position?
If you could spend one day with him?
If I could spend one day with him, what would I ask him? Was that the question, or what would I do with him? Or, well, I would support him, whatever he is doing. He doesn't need any advice from me, definitely not. But I would try to support him, to bring him a banana if he needs one, a cup of coffee, a chair to sit on, anything. Yeah.
Thank you. And what was also inspiring is that he was supported by the youth, by the students. So it's a very beautiful example of intergenerational solidarity as well, and resistance. I found it also very, very strong. Yeah. What about you?
I think in this content, I was organizing so many different events and stuff like that. And the learnings is, on one side, a bit frustrated what's really going on, as we said before, you know, with the finance sector and so and so. But on the other hand, I see there is a big transition shift is going on. So we have the old money world, which still stays in the same paradigm. I was invited to the SDG tent and so, and they were talking about, you know, to tokenizing water all over the planet. Nice, you know, so to get all the resources tokenized and make profit out of it. Is that the way? No, I think we really have to rethink our value system of today. Go back to the roots. I mean, I'm challenging everybody now here a little bit in this room. If you think about Mother Earth gives us everything for free. We don't have to pay. We set the value behind. Right? And the ROI and the KPIs, which we are index in a company, which we want to make some profit, how we can get this aligned with natural impact to say, okay, we want to do something for our Mother Earth, but on the other hand, we want to have a profit for 20%, right? It doesn't go aligned. So that's why I really say we have to rethink our value system. And this is something which I really want to implement in all of you. And it's very nice to see all these wonderful souls in this audience and also on the panel to implement this seed, how our new value system can be. And I just have one idea about that. It is all the molecules and resources which we are using has to be taxed and not the income. And just the second thing is to born a micro tax on every transaction on this planet, on the money system, on the BIZ in Basel, to equalizing humanity. This is my wish for the future, and I think this is something which maybe causes some new ideas.
Thank you, really inspiring. So lots of great ideas. So how do we connect the dots? How do we build bridges to make it systemic? For example, to have everybody adopting these measures now. And so how do we bring it to the next scale? And I want to hear from all of you here, and then we will open up to the people here in the audience. How do you do that? How do you connect people? How do you build bridges? How do we make it more systemic?
One point Noemi mentioned earlier, I think, yes, there is voluntary commitments, there is frameworks, there's data, there's KPIs. We have so many tools. There's a lot of ambition, but I think the ultimate question now is like really have to bring it on the ground, right? We have to act. I think this is what is really missing, and this is really our task right now. And I think one of the things that sort of inspired me in Switzerland is that, there were many projects that we built, realized, from infrastructure to social security systems to many different things, even the whole country in a way, when the civil society came together and decided we want to do that. Maybe it takes a lot of time, persistence, but we can do that, and we can also tackle those bigger challenges. And but in a way, you can start very small. I'm now even thinking to start a new, for myself and colleagues and friends, an impact initiative, because we have to do more. And find your friends, find your colleagues, your partners in crime, and try to realize something in a small, but do something rather than, feel despair or not do anything, or to kind of delegate action to someone else. That would be at least.
That's also about building a community or an ecosystem.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Start somewhere.
I would add to that. My biggest, I think, topic always is to take away the fear. We are so scared about changes, and it needs people that that go further and that show that you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared to drive an electrical car. You don't have to be scared to have some solar panels, for electricity. When I arrived the first time in the village in Ethiopia, bringing our systems, then they were all scared and were skeptical. Another company coming in with some cheap solar things, and then it's not working after 2 weeks. But when I came back after a year, they were queuing because they're asking, when do you bring the next system? Because the entrepreneurs that took our systems got 22 times more income. We overcame this fear of another system because we did it in a different way with really Swiss quality. It was not that cheap. It was Swiss quality. But after that, they earned so much more money that it was cheap, at the end. But we had to overcome this fear. And that's the most important part, because if you overcome it, then you see it's working another way, but a better way.
Thank you. Overcoming the fears and maybe stepping into our dreams and our hope as well. And yes?
Maybe to add, I think we need pragmatic solutions, and they need to be understandable, they need to be simple, not over-engineered, and we need to speak the language of the users or whoever is the one taking benefit. If we talk about product development, for example, we can speak about efficiency or we can speak about value engineering. Just use the terms that they're used to, the concepts that they understand, and go with it. So it doesn't need to be, we don't need to, be too over dogmatic. We don't need to be caring too much about terminology in terms of sustainability or whatever it is. So I think really just straightforward. These, especially also in economical times which are challenging, we need to acknowledge that, and we need to understand what's doable. What can we do now? What's the next step? But just be very pragmatic in the way we move and try to. I know you hate this. Elisabeth, you said no small steps, but if we get the small step to actually get in place, I think we're also moving the needle. So I think it needs both. It needs the radical ones and the courageous ones, but I think it also needs options and pathways for people who want to go step by step, and we need to show that as well, that it's possible, not just to be radically changing the system, but actually showing a pathway, an avenue that people can follow easily. So I think this, more being very pragmatic, I think that helps, not being on a high chair, you can only be sustainable if you never take an airplane and you only eat vegan food. And, I think this has to become mainstream.
So
the power of the turtle is back. Patience and perseverance and step by step. Yes,
and
no
I'm
patience.
going to be very, very pragmatic and very step by step. I take the liberty of drawing your attention to that leaflet that you find on your chair. And if you read that, then perhaps you have an idea about the next little big step.
I love it.
Okay, so I didn't know.
We're going to maybe just pause for a minute so people can read the information.
No,
and I'll go back to you in a minute. But before that, now I also want to invite you to join and come into the challenge with us. So I want to know if there's anybody who's ready to step up now in the chair, in the open chair. Yes?
Yes, it should be easy for you because we touched on so many topics. It was like
okay, so please come, have a seat, make your way. And you were going to say something while he's coming as well. You wanted to share something?
Yeah, I just say that I think it is very essential and important that everybody starts by himself on the beginning, right? So, for example, I had a big house in the past. I had a lot of money and with patents and so, and I decided not to talk about it, of the change, living the change. So I bought a very old farmhouse from 1736 with wood stove. I have my own water supply. I have also solar panels. I can be totally independent. And I think this is something which we have to rethink, all of us, on our consumption. And if you do this as a first step, if you think about, I just want to
walking the talk. Oh, you want to show the shoes?
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is one of the first ski boots worldwide, and it's from 1890. And if you look this, it is still leather. You still can use it. So this is a long-lasting product, and I think we have to go back to this direction, to creating products on a much higher value on the molecules and resources which we are using, repairable, getting away from all these obsolete business models, which, after a certain time you have to throw away. This is all some little things, step by step, where everybody can do by himself. And this is the rethink also of our new future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So now we have a special guest with us. And just to bring you on that same journey, I'm going to ask first the same questions. Your name, your organization, how you feel right now. And also, if you had to choose between the turtle and the butterfly, which one would you choose?
Okay.
You have the mic?
Yes, I have indeed. Using it is also interesting. My name is Royston Flood. I'm a dyslexic polymath. I have had an interesting journey through life. I'm president of the United Nations NGO, focused on developing self-sustaining people, communities, and enterprises. We find that if you are going to look at health, education, enterprise, you need to link them together as an integrated strategy. I'm particularly interested in celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe that women are the power base at the grassroots, and there's lots of evidence of that. I was just with the Brazil House earlier on, and it was said we talked about the women scientists 15,000 years ago, where they found medical plants in the Amazon jungle. My experience...
How do you feel right now? And if you had to choose between the turtle and the butterfly?
God. I think I'll probably choose the butterfly, rather. The turtle, step by step, is good, but you also need the vision of the butterfly to see the helicopter view of what's going on. Otherwise, we end up doing so many things which are false starts.
Great, thank you. So, any questions for our guest, or you have any questions for our panelists? Anyone you want to share?
I was eating earlier on, so I have to say that I apologise to Hans Martin, who's a visionary. My main question is, if you were looking 5 years from now, how would you frame what we should do? How would you fund what we should do? And how would you empower what we should do? Bearing in mind that we are faced with terrible mindsets in virtually every avenue you look. I was with the Director General of UNOG, and she did the Dog and Pony show because she's a journalist. And then she said, "Now I'll tell you what I really think." And she said, the problem with this place is it's all silos. Nobody will give way in any direction in case they lose their resources. And finally, there's no trust. So we have to find a way of dealing with that mindset. How do we find a way of people collaborating? Because the answer is collaboration. And that's why I suggested the butterfly, because you've got to take this helicopter view of things and decide which steps you take. And it's basically working together. Sorry about the voice. They've been giving me ginger shots all afternoon.
So a 5-year plan, and imagine also that you could write down this plan on a piece of paper and put it into a capsule for the next generation to find it and to implement it. So what would be your plan to save humanity, really? That's what you want. That's what we want.
I can give you another
Maybe
view.
that's more than 5 years. Maybe that's a 10 or 20-year plan.
I think I'm quite interested in complexity science. It's a wicked problem. And I think with the climate change and so on, different cities are going to be quite difficult because we're expecting pandemics and all sorts of things. And when things get too big, you get more policemen and justices and so on. My ideal is villages with about 1,000 people, where they're self-managing, they know the people, driven by emotional and spiritual intelligence, So to put a village every 30 kilometers on the planet is about $2 billion, yeah? Price of a small war.
Thank you. So any insights? The insights can come from you as well. Huh? We can also have a mic circulating in the audience.
It's attached.
Anything you want to say?
I guess what we know is that very definitely our thoughts now shape our future. And when I think of, I don't know whether this really answers your question, but when I think of, do I still have hope that I even want to think about what to do or give advice in 5 or 10 or 100 years? And then, you know, it gets me to thinking about hope, and then hope always has to do with the future, right? So can I see myself now in 5 years, in 30 years, in 100 years, and still wanting to contribute? Maybe that would be the question for me. Do I still want to contribute then? And if I could say yes to me, then I certainly could at least answer the question of, yes, I'm still hopeful. And when I think about what advice would I give to a generation, maybe in 100 years, then it comes down to very simple things. belong to the 68th generation, to the Beatles, then I would probably just tell them, all you need is love. All you need is love. Punkt. Yeah, either we have solved all the problems in 50 or 100 years, either we have solved all the problems, or if we haven't, then all the more, all you need is love. So, anyway, that's my contribution to your...
If I may add something to that, and it's probably getting a bit too far, but I like to add it because it recently came into my mind. I mean, things go really in the wrong direction. We see that we destroyed a lot of things. There will be more climate catastrophes, and we don't even know if we survive it. So I thought probably if we're now going into space, we should make a handbook for the future generation how to do it better on the next world we will be, you know, because sure we will travel to further planets, but we should not do it the same like we did it now. Probably we should think about where do we get the resources from? Should we really dig it from this space, or should we just go into an asteroid belt and take it from there? Things like that, you know, that we make now a handbook for future generations, how they should do it when they travel to somewhere, that they make it better and not the same faults again.
Here I would contradict, if I may, because I saw a small section of a conversation with a number of people, including Neil deGrasse Tyson, US astronomer, astrophysicist, where he was basically asked sort of a similar question, and it was about, you know, going to Mars and then in a way also terraforming Mars, and basically if we have the resources, the technology to do so, then we certainly should focus on actually fixing Earth and not doing something new on Mars, right? I think that's the more pressing question because it's our home, basically. And I think while the thought might be deceiving and interesting and nice, I think we have more pressing issues to fix at home.
Probably, if I may answer to that, it's not that I think about this happening, but if you make it as a thought experiment, you see how you could do it better if you start from scratch, and then probably it gives you a better answer for fixing. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure. You know, because
sure.
then you probably you'd show a path how you could do it if you start from scratch and bring it back to that. But because at the end, if we find the solution, we have to do it this way. Before everything is extinct, and yeah.
Maybe we'll just pause and ask for some wisdom from the audience. Anybody who wants to contribute? We went into a journey into the universe, and now we're back to Earth. Maybe we can keep our head in the stars for the dreams, but keep our boots on the ground for the implementation. But anybody else who would like to contribute, please come and have a seat. That's your turn. It's your turn. we will rotate for that seat. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. You open up the discussion a lot. So.
Yeah. And we should remember that planets are hard to come by. Planets are hard to come by.
Habitable ones.
I'm going to agree with that. I live with an astronomist, and it's really, really hard to find a planet B. So let's stick to ours for the moment. My name is Tanja Schellenberg. I represent 200 butterflies in a way. Fair Customer is a network of often very small, singular, one-person companies, and we had the honor to have a little exhibition. And they have big plans, and they have big solutions, and something that gives me hope. We're not politically on it, but one of the initiatives that was close to my heart, and my colleagues agreed, was this Konzernverantwortungsinitiative. It's, I think, the corporate responsibility initiative. And I think that's an interesting story for Switzerland, because our big companies, they have an enormous power. We have, I think, 40% of the cocoa and oil, and we have a overproportionate impact with these large international corporations. And at the same time, we have this instrument of direct democracy that is very rare, and that is a privilege that we have. So 4 years ago, we said yes, but the canton said no. So it was a very tight thing. And now, I don't know if you've realized, for me, this was like an earthquake or a seismic thing, that in 2 weeks, 186,000 signatures were collected. Normally, it takes 15 months, and you carefully plan it so that you have 2 summers so to collect enough signatures. 15 months, and this is such a pressing issue. Obviously, the people were already informed 4 years ago. Everybody knew, but I collected the last couple of Saturdays, or the last 2 Saturdays, and the people were standing in line to sign something. Normally, I have to talk to them 10 times and then maybe 1 signature. So what I'm saying is, my butterflies, they need an airway that supports them. And it's strenuous. Many of them stop after 3 or 4 years if they have to keep flying against. And even though they're geniuses, and I love them, and they do really good things, and we all know that they're really important. And even if the Konzernverantwortungsinitiative, this initiative, I think it doesn't really help these small, it doesn't even impact them, but I think it gives a current, and I would be interested to know what your view is on that. Am I?
Thank you for that. It's so how we keep the ecosystem alive, and how do we keep cultivating the garden and the ecosystem alive so that the life continues. And so you wanted to respond?
No,
yes?
I just wanted to congratulate you. I mean, it's just unbelievable, those number of signatures. I read it in the newspaper.
I didn't do it. We all.
No.
Amazing.
I mean, everybody contributed, but it is.
It's really, really. I think this is historical.
It is, and
it will help a lot of. It's the sticks. Huh? We need carrots, and we have a lot of win-win situation. But if you have a little sticks here and there, it does help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's you need both, definitely. I think there's, as I mentioned earlier, it's like there's a lot of voluntary action, which is great for those companies and institutions or individuals that would like to go ahead and do something. There is possibility to do so, but you have to have push and pull, right? You have to kind of also move all the others who are not really or not so much interested in moving, right? And I think even from the first initiative, right, now we have more transparency on sustainability, which companies have to provide. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a first step, but now that also has to improve, right? So in a sense, you have to have both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else?
I think to add, I mean, I fully support also the initiative, and at least two of the signatures were from me and my girlfriend. And I tell that as a company also, I completely support. I think it's just the way how we should act. You know, we have to be responsible what we are doing, especially in foreign countries. But on the other side, I think transparency is also something very important. I hear that when this process was recently, I think 2 days ago, about this one company that is sourcing material somewhere, that there was no transparency about how this is going. And I think we just need in this whole material flows, we need much more transparency. So combined with our responsibility, we also have to know what is going on to act then as a democracy.
I want to echo that. I think the quality or the chance, the opportunities that data gives us in this point, the transparency, it creates a lot of opportunity to take better decisions. So once we know and we see and we understand, we can create meaning and we can take decisions in a term that we want to, or it has an influence on supply chain you mentioned. I think that's crucial. We need to understand where things come from, but also from a risk perspective. We need to mitigate those risks and we need to understand where they lie. So it's about geopolitical situations, but it's also about costs. It's about being transparent to your values, to your goals, but also to whoever has a stake in your organization, your initiative, or your company. So the impact of data and showing transparency, I think, can be tremendous, and we need that in all dimensions.
I think this is a very good point, and I really can support this because I made it myself, the experience in a corporate business, worldwide big company. Transparency, this is a big question mark. Because there is a big show in front of a stage, you know, they show the new products and celebrate that and so, but you have no clue what's behind the curtain. And I think if we can lift up this curtain and we can show how industrial processes are going on and what kind of people are behind and what's the laborship and so, I think with this transparency, we can create trust. And if we have a light tower from companies which they start with this new way of transparency, I think this can shift a lot in the way how we are behave with our and respect with our, how we say, workers, with our resources, with our management skills, and start to listen to the other. And I think that all the products, a normal consumer product can get a different value. And with this trust, you can bind also people to the next, developing step on that.
Thank you. And the word trust it keeps coming back here everywhere around Davos. I don't know if you noticed. And there's also the House of Trust. There was a Circle of Trust and transparency for trust. So let's keep building on that. Thank you for sharing. I hope this was good for you in terms of insights.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anybody else wants to come up? Yes? How many people would like to... So just to have an idea of how many people... 1, 2... Maybe while he's joining us, we can all stand up and stretch because it's been a long day. So, welcome on board. What's your name? What is the organization or initiative that's close to your heart right now? And would you be a butterfly or a turtle?
Thank you. My name is Edwin Akabilo. I'm the founder of Small World Project, Switzerland. So, since originally I'm from the south, from Nigeria to be precise, so my journey have been the one of big transformation. So, I've seen it all. I've started from, washing plates, getting my education, doing a lot of things, and at the same time, being a founder of NGO. So in that sense, I need to change and transform in order to survive.
Any question you want to ask to the panel?
Yeah.
Or insights you want to share?
Yeah, kind of insight as well as the issue of trust. Before, the lady that spoke before, she talked about the initiative, which comes about transparency. It's quite, from my experience of, I think I've spent more, 50% of my life more here in Switzerland than in the South. But at the same time, I have the experience of the culture. So when it comes to transparency, what we miss sometimes is culture. That maybe from the South, maybe where most of the resources are coming from. And I give an example of sometimes illegal funds being sent over here. At the same time, in review of transparency, the government says, okay, we are going to send it back. And maybe they send it back, which is quite right, but it comes back again because of, one, lack of trust, and secondly, lack of transparency. So, and the insight I'm bringing is that sometimes maybe the government or agency, maybe will seek people who understand the culture so that when issues like that comes up, they can maybe advise the government or agencies how to go about it, maybe in terms of education, in terms of how to utilize the resources. So, like my NGO, we started from the community where I came from. And because I understand the culture, because my dad used to be one of the elders of the community, so I could be able to bring some initiative where they trusted me, and most of our focus is on women because we understand their reliability in terms of taking care of the family and the children. So most of the initiatives we do it with women, we're planting trees with women, we are cultivating, we are supporting local businesses. And most of the business are very transparent and SDG compliant. And also my friend here, Medici, who is sitting on the panels. So because of the trust we have together, there's a lot of projects we are talking about. And this arises from the trust. And most of those projects are also, in terms of we don't use human labor, we make sure that people are paid what they deserve or what is quite sustainable for them and their family. So in that respect, I think the insight I'm giving out is that we should try to, that aspect of culture is very important in whatever we do, especially when it comes to where the resources are coming from. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to ask you what you mean by culture. Do you mean norms and values? What do you mean? Because you used the word culture now several times.
I give an example. There's once we sourced a fund from the European Union for some project, and the requirement comes with a lot of things that have cultural implications. For example, they are giving us the kind of certain behavior that or criteria we have to fulfill in terms of maybe how people are behaving before we can even have access to the project. But most of those things are maybe not vital to success of the company. I give you an example. There was a time, and maybe some of you read the story. Some MIT student, they went to India. They did a project. They bored a borehole in the community center so that women are no longer going to the stream to fetch water. Mm-hmm. So when they came back maybe 4 years ago to analyze the project, they found out the women continue going to the stream regardless of the borehole is in the center of the city. Why? Because they missed that aspect of communicating with each other, sharing views when they go to the stream to fetch water. So if they would have understood the aspect of that culture that they need, the essence of going to the stream is not just about getting clean water. It's also about what happened along the way.
Yeah. I understand now. Yeah, thank you.
I like to add something because I think you touched a very important point, and I saw that also. You know, when we are developing products for global markets in the global South, it has sometimes to be in a different way. We have to do it respectful. During my time when I was in Africa, I saw so many products that did not really fit into the market because they were developed for the West, but they didn't fit for the market. And there is a new way of developing things. It's called frugal innovation. I don't know if you might know it. And it's designing products and value chains and distribution models, especially for these markets. And I think it's also on us to being respectful and develop things that really fit into it, because then it works very well. And I like to give a good example with Edwin. You know, I provided to Edwin a special unit that we developed, and it's to run a motor without any with solar and without any batteries. You just plug some solar modules, then have this small device, and then you run a motor, and then you can run a machine, you know. So I just gave it to Edwin. Edwin took it to Nigeria. The next day, nail producing machine. You just enter some metal, and it produces nails, and you connect it to the solar modules, and it's producing nails all the day, as long as the sun is shining. Very simple, and then we just plug it to place, and now they have a nail production unit just run by solar. It's amazing what you can do, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Hats off. We can applaud, I think. And really, congratulations for building the trust between the North and the South, Nigeria, Switzerland, between men and women as well, across different cultures. Hats off to you as well. We started the day with a circle of trust, and we will finish also with a circle of trust. Before we go to the closing, I don't know if there are any other burning questions, and I'd like to invite you to stay with us, actually, if that's okay. We can take questions from the audience as well, if there are more insights. So I think people are getting a little bit tired. If not, I want to go back to the panelists. Actually, one of the initial questions we had was to ask you to share a special moment in your life that made you feel really proud. And imagine that you would want to tell that story to your children, to your grandchildren, to inspire future leaders. So it can be in your private life or in your professional life. What is it for you?
It's several things, but what it comes to my mind is really these initiatives which we started 7 years ago at the Spengler Cup with Next Generation. And this comes out of the blue. And within 2 months, we had everything together. And we start with 11 companies, just about sustainable economy, sharing economy, and cradle to cradle. And it was actually a beer idea on the beginning. But now it's a movement. It's 220 firms in Switzerland which are connected to us. And as I said, I think it is very important not just to talking about theories. Do it. Take your sleeve back and do it together. Use the swarm intelligence. Then you really can bring something further. And this is what I feel all the time with some kind of proud that, you know, many people which come to us, they said, what's the value behind? And then we said, okay, it is this swarm intelligence. This is one thing. The other thing is to open up R&Ds, research and development department, learn from each other, listen to each other, think out of the box. And this is something which it helps tremendous, really, to coming forward in new directions.
Thank you for sharing your passion. What about you, Noemi?
What a question to end the session. I mean, there's loads of things to share. But what I want to build on building bridges, and that on a very personal note as well. I took my family with me on the idea of living abroad for 2 years. So we came back 1.5 years ago, and we lived in Singapore for 2 years, and that was a decision that we took in COVID, where everybody was closing borders, and all the countries were focused on internal issues and solving the issues for themselves, and trying to make a fence around whatever comes from abroad is dangerous. And I really wanted to make sure that my kids don't live with that fear and that feeling inside of them. So I really want them to explore the world and see that there is so many ways of living, so many ways, so many different cultures, and so many ways of approaching situations, solutions, problems, and being challenged by the difference and the different things that this beautiful world has to offer. So yeah, I think this is what I would like to share.
Great. Over to you.
Something I'm proud of is till 2008 I worked over 20 years in the ICT environment. So as I worked, I had a good IT job, and then I quit it because I wanted to do something really useful, for the rest of my life. So I quit it. I went on a world trip. I landed in Kenya, and then I started to work with solar. And since then, started my startup. And it, even if it's so tough, and we run out of money so many times now, especially in the global south, as mentioned, it's such a huge adventure, and it feels just so good to do something useful. So I will never miss it, and will never miss that step that I stopped my, let's say, boring job in the IT.
Yeah. So for me, very definitely, it's that moment when the president of this court actually gave us all the points and we won the case. And can you imagine, it's the very first time that an international court actually really established, yes, climate protection is a human right, and yes, a state has an obligation to protect its people from the adverse effects of climate change. So that moment when that was spoken, it was just an amazing moment. And we were asked so many times, what were the reasons? What do you think were the reasons? And I think one of them is having an absolute committed young lawyer, by the way. She was only 34 when we started, all the way from the beginning. She was the continuity. And here we were, these old women. We don't run off anymore. We stay with the project. And we lived diversity. We are different and we sometimes quarrel, but we stood together and actually really got out that incredible positive ruling, judgment. Yes, that was a great moment.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You, Sasha?
What I'm most proud of is also something personal, perhaps. One of the best projects I was involved in is actually my daughter. And this is, in a way, in the end, a big motivation to kind of, contribute to that she has a livable world when she's growing up.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, my life has been a miracle, coming from the global south and then coming to Switzerland with nothing, and then having to have my bachelor education here free, having my master's free, and being among the best of the best in Swiss IT, being a global analyst. And like Alessandro mentioned, now I'm quit my job so that I can focus on the NGO. So it's not easy, it's scary. If you have to give up everything, you have learned for the past 20-something years, and now I want to focus 100% on this NGO, helping other people. It's quite, for me, scary, but I think I'm focused, and I believe in synchronicities that the former Swiss psychology mentioned. So I believe, and I have trust that it will work out.
Thank you so much. And I will share just a butterfly moment for us. Was, I think, actually what I'm most proud are my children, but something we did in our work last year. We hosted an online summit just before COP28, and we basically built a bridge between Mary Robinson, that you know very well, who is a human rights activist, former president of Ireland, amazing woman diplomat, and a bit of an activist as well for the phase out of fossil fuels. And we had also Sultan El Jaber, maybe you remember him, COP28 president, the CEO of one of the largest oil companies in the world. The UAE has, I think, the 5th oil reserve in the world. And we hosted this summit with more than 800 women leaders from around the world, and it was a bit controversial. Some of our people were like, why are you inviting this guy, this oil businessman? But we really advocated for dialogue, for building a bridge, even with people we don't agree with. And this specific moment, really, it went a bit off script. So he was really briefed by his team to stay. But Mary Robinson really pushed him, and he managed to say that, no, we don't need to phase out fossil fuels, and this is not what the science is saying. And we had invited the press to be on the call, on the online summit, so they picked up the story. We actually didn't know about it, so it was not totally prepared. And just when the COP28 opened, the journalist from The Guardian released the story. And that story, like, it went viral, so it was covered around the world by 60 media outlets. Then that specific moment of the online summit, which was transparently online, was watched by 12 million people. And it was not the only factor, it was many other factors as well, but it played, I think, a role of a catalyst and a butterfly effect. And then there was so much pressure on the COP presidency that they just couldn't escape it. And so they had to deliver a decision on fossil fuels. And, they negotiated the words, and in the end, they agreed to transition away from fossil fuels in this decade, which was the first moment in history of all the climate negotiations. I've been to like 20 COPs in my life, that finally we had the words fossil fuels into the text. So it was a huge victory for many of us. It was a butterfly effect, but now with what's happening in the US, I'm really thinking we need the turtle, and we need many turtles. We need the perseverance. We need the shell to protect ourselves as well. And it's going to be a long trip. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining this journey in the universe. We started with the poem. We went all the way to Mars and back to Earth and back to your ecosystem, and then also to your personal story. So thank you so much for sharing with authenticity. Thank you for listening with empathy, and I know it's quite late. And we're going to just close and stand up and give each other a big hug as a sign of trust, because we want to build trust. So you can also hug each other in the audience if you feel like. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you to Michaela, who is the creator of it. Thank you to Nicole. I know so much. Thank you, and thank you to you all. And let's keep building trust.
It's just blind.
We need to turn the light off.
Ja, den einen Knopf rein. Oh, in 4 minutes. What happened? Ja, also einfach, ich bin Panik. Das ist da oben. Das ist alles im Kloster. Soll ich dich auf Kloster? Ich muss nach Panik.